The unit block plan is a tool which conveys information about the entire unit plan in a brief, concise format. The block plan is essentially an outline for the entire unit plan. Completing a block plan before making the unit lesson plans helps educators better understand each lesson's topic, assessments, and learning objectives so they can create a cohesive, organized unit. Additionally, a detailed, organized block plan communicates information to coworkers and administrators about what students will be learning in an educator's classroom and can help a teacher defend their practice in educational decisions. This slide features the block plan template used by the Health and Physical Education program for secondary physical education. This single block covers 5 days of instructional content, and each day is divided into the lesson's components: learning objectives, warm-up, applied activity, and more. Cramming this template with an overwhelming amount of information is not effective. The block plan will then span many pages and will be difficult to read and understand. Each box should have enough detail to clearly communicate the most important information about the lesson, but information should be limited to only what is necessary to provide a detailed outline for each lesson. For example, putting an entire assessment in the assessment box or an entire activity description in the applied activities section is simply overwhelming and ineffective. The rest of this presentation will cover each section of the block plan, highlighting best practice instructional planning and providing practical tips. The learning objective is the first component of the block plan. This objective should be linked to a Shape America grade span learning indicator. Additionally, multiple objectives may be used for a single lesson, although any more than 2 learning objectives in a single lesson is likely too ambitious. Appropriate terminology should be used in the block plan learning objectives, including the physically literate individual will, or TPLIW, and specific action verbs to represent students' learning behaviors. Furthermore, the objective included in the block plan may be slightly shortened to increase readability and conciseness. In the detailed daily lesson plans, objectives should include all the important components: the learning action, criteria or evidence, conditions, and the I can statement. If the criteria and conditions are missing in the block plan, this is usually acceptable because the goal of the block plan is conciseness. Finally, an I can statement should also be included in the learning objective area so that the teacher can easily communicate learning expectations with their students. Also, the same learning objective and I can statement may be used for multiple days in the block plan, which is actually desirable because it ensures students have adequate opportunities to practice and learn the target skill. When students enter the physical education learning environment, they should immediately be engaged in learning and physical activity. Practices such as taking attendance in squad lines or punishing students who show up tardy to class are inappropriate and an ineffective use of valuable instructional time. Instead, warm-up should be individualized to each lesson, efficiently raising students' heart rate and respiration rate, activating the major muscles to be used during the lesson, and reviewing essential movement patterns. A consistent dynamic warm-up establishes routine and can be an effective whole-body warm-up, but lead-up games, small group activities, and fitness challenges are often more engaging and specific to the lesson activities. Furthermore, the teacher should experiment with teacher-directed versus student-led or self-directed warm-up activities. The teacher's expertise and control of the learning environment is useful, especially at the start of the semester or with more inexperienced learners. But students are also highly capable of leading their peers or self-directing their own warm-ups. Writing warm-up exercises or activities on the whiteboard and communicating expectations with students can be an effective way to immediately get students moving and increase their independence. In the review section of the block plan, the teacher notes any concepts or skills to review. This section may be left blank, especially at the start of a new unit, but should be used as frequently as possible to refresh students' learning and connect prior learning experiences to the current lesson's objectives. The review section is a great opportunity to demonstrate a skill again, invite a student to demonstrate the skill, and review the skill's critical elements. In addition to reviewing psychomotor learning objectives, the teacher might also emphasize cognitive, social, or affective skills. For example, the teacher might ask how a student can select the best club for a golf shot, Or they might ask students to share one example of positive social cooperation they've experienced during the unit. In all, the review section should be very brief, but its importance should not be overlooked, as many students may struggle to make connections across different lessons in the same unit. The lesson focus section is a very brief description of the lesson's main activity. Basically, the title for the lesson goes in this box, such as backhand drive disc throw. This box should be the shortest box in the entire block plan, and additional details are redundant because specific information about the lesson is provided in all the other sections of the block plan. The lesson focus section might also include short phrases highlighting specific learning objectives, such as providing feedback, implementing feedback, or self-analyzing performance. The applied activity is the main activity for the lesson. The teacher may include a couple activities in this section, although too many activities is not realistic in a short period of time. The applied activity should align with the learning objective, lesson focus, and the assessment, and the activity should be developmentally appropriate, engaging and challenging, and physically and emotionally safe for all students, as well as relatively easy to organize, explain, and set up. In the block plan, the applied activity section should have enough detail so that the activity's purpose and basic organization are clear. Information about grouping of students and rules for the activity may also be included in the section, although this is not necessary and may become an overwhelming amount of information. The assessment section should provide the assessment's title and a brief description of the assessment, including a brief description of the corresponding learning objective. Additionally, the learning domain being assessed, psychomotor, cognitive, social, or affective, and the method of assessment should be included in the assessment section of the block plan. Any additional information about the assessment should be obtained by finding the actual assessment in the unit plan. It's typically appropriate to hold formal assessments up to twice a week, and not all of the boxes in the block plan have to be filled for the assessment section, other than stating that there might be no assessments today, as appropriate. Despite this, teachers should still keep written observational records, even if they're not formally assessing students on that day. Furthermore, completing the assessment section in the unit block plan can help an educator create their daily lesson assessments and can help create an appropriate balance of assessments across all learning domains. The block plan is meant to be a shortened version of the entire unit plan, which a coworker or administrator can take a quick look over and know what the educator will be doing each day. Additionally, instructional planning is important because a teacher may be evaluated in part by their written plans, and detailed instructional planning communicates a commitment to the teaching practice and to the reflective process of creating effective and inclusive learning environments. Taking the time to create thoughtful, organized instructional planning materials demonstrates a teacher's educational thought process, teaching style, and the ability to make practical decisions. And creating planning materials will help a teacher feel more prepared, confident, and capable. Thank you for watching, and how do you use planning materials to support your learning environment?